Hello everyone! Welcome to Aha Moments with the Koi. I am Gwen Heiser. I am owner of Lavender Koi Yoga in Berlin, New Jersey. So we are going to talk about the art of just being. So what is that? So after I explain what the art of just being is, your next question is going to be, how do I get that? Because the art of just being is absoluteness. It is a human being's natural state of being, free of desires, attachments, our conditioning, all of that stuff that is part of that human conditioning package. So with anything else, being able to get ourselves to realize and understand what the art of being is practice. We have to cultivate it, and we have to first really understand what the art of being is. If we as a human being have been spending our entire lives believing that we are our thoughts. We can have thoughts, they are a part of us, but they are not us. Most of our thoughts are not original thoughts. To actually come up with an original thought takes a lot of effort, a lot of work. So most of our thoughts, when we really start to look at them, they come from other places. Maybe they come from our parents, maybe they come from society, maybe they come from friends. So an original thought is really something special, okay? So the art of being, right? So what is that? That is the skill to remain firmly established in the actionless and therefore thought-free state of perfectly clear self-conscious being, which is the state of absolute self-surrender and true self-knowledge. So, like I said, we have to practice this because most of us have spent our entire lives believing we are our thoughts, believing that we are our ego. Right? So yes, we have all those, and yes, we can control them in some way, but we have to realize that we are not them. It is a part of us. So what makes it difficult for a human being to move into a space of just being is a lot of things. So this is a very heavy topic, but at the same time, the concept behind it is very simple. And that's like a lot of yoga philosophy's concepts. You say it, it sounds very simple to do, but actually doing it and accomplishing it takes a lot of practice because it's kind of going against everything that we've done in our lives. So if we find that this concept is hard for us to understand or get, no worries. We can just keep investigating, right? There's no like stopping point or obtaining, absoluteness. There's no time frame for it, right? This is an evolution process, and it's a life practice. Yoga is a life practice. So one of the ways that we get our minds kind of ripened to be able to conceptualize this idea is through working with the Eightfold Path or the 8 limbs of yoga. So the first 2 are called the yamas and the niyamas. And so the yamas are, in Sanskrit, they're referred to as restraints. So they're both 5 sets of ethical guidelines to help us gain insight into our inner world and also navigate ourselves through the outside world, the material world, right? Because we have 2 sides to us, right? One that is our permanence, which is our inner world, and then everything that is trapped in time and space, which is impermanence. And that is everything in the outer world. So the yamas are 5 ethical guidelines or restraints that help us deal with things going on outside of us in our outside world. And the niyamas in Sanskrit, they are observances. Okay, so they are observances of the self, your inner working. So that has to do with 5 observances of the self. So the first 5 yamas, we'll talk about this at another YouTube video, because that's a whole other kind of explanation that needs to happen. But just for a brief breakdown of the 5 yamas, the ones that deal with our outer world, the restraints are non-violence, truthfulness, non-stealing, non-access, and non-possessiveness. And then the niyamas, which is the self-study work, the observances, insights to the self, are purity, contentment, self-discipline, self-study, and ultimate surrender. So breaking those down and practicing those every day of your life, and then eventually they become just the way that you are. Your mind will start to really ripen to this concept of just being, right? Because one of the main things that really keeps us from this concept is our attachment to stuff in the material world, attachment to our emotions. So when we realize our attachments and realize how much our desires, keep us from this ultimate state of being. For example, we have a lot of rules that we set for ourselves, or if we have a perception or a belief system, and someone questions that belief system, we're gonna have a hard time, because we believe that we are right and we believe that that other person is wrong, right? So there's really no winning in that scenario. So just as William Shakespeare says, there is nothing either good or bad, but thinking makes it so, right? So that's basically in a nutshell, right? I say this, you say that. I'm right, you're wrong. We have a lot of that going on. But when we start to break down why we feel that way, that is going to set us free, right? So most of the time, we walk around through our lives, being like, this is this, right? And if something questions that, we're going to have a hard time with that. So one of the best ways to really understand the art of just being, observing it, witnessing it. We have one of the greatest masters of this available to us 24/7, and it's nature. Right? Nature is the master of the art of being, right? A flower is never questioning its beauty. Right? A blade of grass is never going to worry about what the weather's going to be. Right? A bee is never going to get mad at another bee for going near its flower. Right? There is the natural law of nature. Right? There is, this has to function in order for this to function. But there's so much beauty and truth in nature, and it's all available to us. Nothing is hidden from us. The design of a flower is right there out in the open. It is created to do its job, right? To do its purpose. A bee, like I said, same thing. Neither one can live without the other, right? right? So that's one of the huge things we as human beings have to really understand. This is kind of getting off topic a little bit, but this is so important. We cannot live without nature, right? So everything is connected. We are connected to each other through energy. So everything is connected. And consciousness is content. So we exist because there's content. We have consciousness because there is content. So for me, I want to make sure my content is good because I want my consciousness to be good. Okay? So ultimately, what binds us as human beings, if we're sitting there thinking like, oh my gosh, I got all this stuff that I got to work with, what is binding us will ultimately set us free, right? So another way to really understand this concept is, for example, right? Say a man is going through a divorce, right? And he hears, almost his ex-wife's name. He's going to start to feel a certain way, right? Probably in a pretty negative way because of his attachment to his almost ex-wife, right? So there's a lot to unpack, with that issue, right? So that man, gets upset. Right? He might not even realize why he's getting upset, and then he starts to become destructive. He starts to make bad decisions out of being upset. He's emotionally moved just by hearing a name, right? But if, time has passed, he has found forgiveness and, has made peace with that, what's going to happen when he hears, his ex-wife's name? He's not going to feel as strongly towards it. There has been, a release, right? A release of those strong desires and those strong attachments and that strong conditioning that he's starting to build on, right? I used to work with a woman who hated the color purple. And I used to think all the time, that's crazy. How can you hate a color, right? A color purple. Like, what did the color purple do to you, right? But, I don't know the story behind it, but maybe she had a beloved stuffed animal that was all purple. And, when she was a child, she lost it. And she was devastated from it. It was her whoopee, right? It was her comfort. Because, of that trauma that she endured, she always has this attachment to the color purple. So every time she sees that color, it's not the experience that bubbles up, but it's the feeling around that experience that bubbles up, right? So all of this, right? All of human likes and dislikes, all of our attachments, our aversions that we have to stuff, our fears, our opinions, our belief systems, our rules, our shoulds, our should nots, our desires, they are all obstacles keeping us away from the art of just being, right? And the art of just being is our natural state of being. So that is why it feels so good to be in this state, right? And when we are in this state, what happens is we create a better life for ourselves. We have clearer knowledge around decisions, around ourselves. I would rather know how Gwen is going to function around an experience rather than just like freeballing it, right? So I want to know how I'm going to react. So I do this inner work. Whenever, something comes up and I feel a certain way, I don't naturally react out of it, right? I take note of it and I say, why am I feeling this way? right? Ask yourself questions. That is the best way to get answers. Because if you don't and you just react out of that emotional attachment you have, then maybe you're going to be making a really bad decision because you're not with a clear head. You're not having focus. You are completely in that emotional state, maybe bringing you back, to some of that trauma that we're trying to release ourselves from. So the art of just being is a human being calm before the storm and then staying calm when the storm comes, right? So you are unmoved internally, right? So you're able to act, right, very clearly with great understanding when you're happy, when you're sad, when you're jealous, when you feel greed. All of those emotions can flow through you. You don't have to react to them. I always imagine it as an emotion, coming to me. And instead of my being grabbing it and pulling it in, I let it flow through me, right? So getting our mind wrapped around this idea can only come through experience, right? So this is something that I can probably talk hours about, but you have to experience it. And the best way we can experience it, like I said, is either going through a walk in nature and then just starting to observe how nature functions. Nature functions out of absoluteness, right? It functions out of balance, right? So if a natural disaster comes in, it doesn't mean we have to like it. It might destroy a lot, but it had to happen because, the earth is always trying to maintain its balance. If we didn't have balance, a lot would be thrown off. And we might be in that state right now in 2022, trying to work and get our balance back. To be able to find our inner peace through the state of just being, like I said, we have to experience it. And once we experience it, we want to start to bring it into our lives. We want to start to practice it. So one of the ways that I have practiced this is, not putting myself right in the center of the storm. Right, I could be on the outskirts of the storm and just observe, right? And if I notice the flux that starts to bubble up within me, I start to communicate with myself, have a conversation with myself. Why am I feeling this way, right? Is there a reason that I'm feeling this way? And when we do this work, we never say this is right or this is wrong. I shouldn't feel this way, right? Emotion is so much truth to us. So that's why it's so important to pay attention to how that emotion got to you, why you were holding on to that emotion. And almost, anytime we are moved out of a state of peace is because we don't like what is happening. We don't like the situation that is happening, or an emotional state moved us into a place where we just don't like it. We want something to change. But when we're happy, right? When we're having a good time, when we're enjoying the moment, we want to change a thing. So realizing those moments in our lives where we're completely content, start realizing those more and more, right? And when we start to realize those more and more, we're going to start to bring those more into our lives. Right? So the state of being, right? The art of just being is a human being able to be free in a moment. And through that freedom, we're able to see things very clearly. Right? We're opening up our scope of awareness. Remember that everything comes from our perception of things, right? We have no other reference point but ourselves. So we want to get ourselves to a really good understanding. We want to know ourselves. We want to have knowledge around ourselves. And when we have knowledge around ourselves, that's power, right? I always say that, whenever I feel out of control or I feel like my power is being taken away from me, I ask myself, who's in the driver's seat right now? Am I in the driver's seat? Or is that other person in the driver's seat? Or is my emotional state in the driver's seat? And if I'm not in the driver's seat, then that's an issue. That's a problem, because I always want to be in the driver's seat of my life, right? I don't want my emotions to, be driving around, especially if it's anger, right? Being able to be in life with entering into experience, whatever it may be, with acceptance and having discernment around the acceptance, rather than moving and acting in life with resistance and ego-driven mindset. Right? The ownership of stuff kind of gets sticky. It gets us in a bind because the ownership of stuff, it sucks. Right? There are people who are minimalists, right? And, thinking about it, if you have minimal amount of stuff, you have way less attachments in your life. And that's what we're doing here. We want to understand our attachments and release ourselves from attachments, because we don't own any of this stuff. Even though I would like to say I own my children, I don't own my children, right? They were gifted to me. And then I get to kind of guide them on their life journey a little bit. But I'm not going to tell them exactly how they need to show up for themselves in their lives. They have to figure that out on their own. And no matter what age you are, you can do this as well for yourself. Ask yourself, have I been showing up for myself in my life? And if the question is no, do something about it, right? It is so important for you to be in the driver's seat of your life, right? And I always say, if there's something that's like very loud in your head and you can't get rid of it, imagine putting it in the trunk, right? You can still kind of hear it there, but get away from it for a while. And allow yourself to be free of it. The best way to do that is to step on your mat, right? Do some meditation. Meditation is the ultimate of letting go. Right. So before we leave, I'm going to leave us with a story. And this is an old Buddhist story. And it has to do with a teacher and a student, okay? So the student comes to the teacher. He heard about this teacher being able to get his students to enlightenment. And enlightenment is the ultimate surrender, right? So it is basically the art of just being, okay? So the student comes to the teacher and says, I am here to become enlightened. How long do you think that will take me? And the teacher smiles and looks at the student and he says, I don't know, like 5 years? And the student says, well, I don't got 5 years. I don't want it to be 5 years. I am going to work so hard at becoming enlightened. I'm going to meditate all day long until I find enlightenment. And the teacher says, oh, okay. So the student says, well, how long will it take me? And the teacher says, 10 years. And the student says, no, you don't get it. You don't understand. I'm going to work so hard. This is all I'm here for. I am going to try my best. I'm going to show up at the meditation temple every single day, meditate from, sunrise to sunset and beyond. I am going to get enlightened. How long is that going to take me? And the teacher says, oh, I see. Forever. And the student is like, I don't get it. And the teacher says, exactly. Obtaining enlightenment, you already have it within you, right? It's not something you find or you buy. It's already within you. So your natural state of being, peace within, already resides within you. So all you have to do is be with yourself. Acknowledge your existence. Bring more content into your life. Bring more feeling into your life. Physical, mental. Acknowledge your emotions. Don't try to get rid of them the minute they come into you, right? Let them be in there. You don't have to attach yourself to the emotion. You can realize what it's doing to you. And through that realization, you're going to have a choice whether to say goodbye or to investigate and gain more insight into why that emotion is present within you. Right? So the more you know, the more power you have. And the more power you have, nothing is going to be able to get into that driver's seat except you. Okay? So again, if you have any questions about this topic, please reach out. Again, this is Aha Moments with the Koi. I am Gwen Heiser, owner of Lavender Koi Yoga in Berlin, New Jersey. And yoga philosophy is such a huge part of our practice, and it's so important because yoga isn't just about doing postures, wrapping yourself up into a pretzel. This is life work. Yoga is life. And so that is why this platform, we wanted to, bring it out, because we teach such incredible work here that we wanted to share it with you. So again, if you want to reach out, our website is lavenderkoiyoga.com, and we hope you have an incredible rest of your day. Namaste.